We've created more jobs. We're in a situation where people have access to good paying jobs.
Erin Burnett, who is the quote unquote journalist, there is no doubt Biden knew the questions in advance. There's no doubt they edit, they stop, all of these things. This is complete theater. And despite the fact that it is mainstream drivel theater, Joe Biden did not do particularly well. Let's just put it that way. Here's a fairly brutal takedown of everything that Joe Biden has done over the last couple of years.
So when you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls. And part of the reason for that may be the numbers. And you're aware of many of these, of course. The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations. Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of the American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape. The polling data has been wrong all along. How many, you guys do a poll at CNN, how many folks you have to call to get one response? The idea that we're in a situation where things are so bad, the folks that, we've created more jobs. We're in a situation where people have access to good paying jobs. And the last I saw, the combination of the inflation, the cost of inflation and all those things, that's really worrisome to people with good reason. That's why I'm working very hard to bring the cost of rentals down, to increase the number of homes that are available. But let me say it this way. When I started this administration, people were saying there's going to be a collapse of the economy. We have the strongest economy in the world. Let me say it again, in the world.
No, we don't. And nobody believes you. He sounds like a zombie. By the way, call me a crazy conspiracy theorist. Joe Biden used to have blue eyes. His eyes are not blue anymore. I think that has something to do with the cocktail of drugs. I don't know specifically. I'm just putting it out there. Google Joe Biden pictures, 1980s, 1990s. Even when he was vice president, he had blue eyes, like a light blue eyes. Now he has black eyes. He also sounds like he's about to croak, right? He sounds like a zombie. And I do want to give Erin Burnett, and CNN is awful, she's awful, okay, fine. But I do want to give her credit there because she did bring up a couple points that all are true. And nothing he said has any bearing on reality. And you can see he's losing the sentence as he's saying everything. Buying home now costs double. We know that the price of everything is going up. Talk to your local contractor or go to Home Depot and see how much a 2x4 costs now under Biden versus 4 years ago. They printed money, right? Bidenomics, they printed money to put into the economy. And when you print money, there's something called supply and demand. All you have to do is take a basic economics 101 course. Wouldn't recommend taking it in Columbia. You might become a jihadist. But if you do that, if you just start printing more of something, the value of that thing starts going down. Real income, she talks about, and inflation. Growth is down. We all feel these things. And really the important one, I think, because it's somewhat ephemeral, is just consumer confidence. If you're the average person right now, do you feel like things are really going well? Like in terms of not only your buying power and whether you can get a house and buy and all the rates, interest rates that are exploding, they're back up to about 8%, right? I mean, every time we talk about the economy, I say the same thing. The one thing that you really should look at when it comes to a healthy economy is low interest rates, because when interest rates are low and you can borrow money at 2.5%, basically, you're borrowing a little money. You're saying, thank you to the bank. Thank you for lending me this. Now I can buy a home. I can start investing in something that will create more value, eventually sell it, keep moving my way up. Someone else will get in at that lesser value home. That is what is all good. Everything he said there is complete drivel. So I do want to give credit where credit is due. Erin Burnett, hot diggity dog, you did all right. Here's more of Biden getting smacked.
The strongest economy in the world. Let me say it again, in the world.
Although GDP last week was far short of expectations.
Oh, it wasn't. Look, GDP is still growing. Look at the response of the markets. Overwhelmingly positive. Overwhelmingly positive. And one of the reasons why people feel good about it, not being as strong as it was before, is they believe that the Fed's going to respond.
They hope they're going to get a rate cut.
Yeah. Well, but No president's had the run we've had in terms of creating jobs and bringing down inflation. It was 9% when I came to office. 9%. But look, people have a right to be concerned. Ordinary people, the idea that you bounce a check and you get a $30 fee for bouncing the check, I change that. You can't charge more than $8 for that. Or your credit card, your late payment, $35. I mean, there's corporate greed going on out there, and it's got to be dealt with.
Oh, it's corporate greed. Okay, first off, there's a couple things here. Thank you, Joe Biden. The banks used to charge people $30 for bouncing a check. And the reason you bounce a check is because you don't have enough money in your account, which has something to do with you tanking the economy. The fee has now gone to $8 instead of $30. Thank God for Joe Biden. My God, if it wasn't for Joe Biden. Of course, he blames corporate greed. Yes, suddenly it's just the corporations, those giant food corporations that just want to charge more people for eggs and milk. And they seem to only want to do it under Democrats and you. They didn't want to do it under Trump when prices of everything were going down. They suddenly were like, my God, Biden's in charge. Let's be greedy. Let's be greedy. Arr. Here's Biden with more on corporate greed. This is just Oh, and his thing about inflation, lie. We'll get to some evidence on that in just a second, but here he is, more on corporate greed.
What about, but there's real pain. Grocery prices are up 30%, more than 30% since the beginning of the pandemic, and people are spending more on food and groceries than they have at any time really in the past 30 years. That's a real day-to-day pain that people feel.
It really is, and it's real. But the fact is that if you take a look at what the people have, they have the money to spend. It angers them and angers me that you have to spend more. For example, the whole idea of this notion that Senator Casey talked about, shrinkflation. I think it's on your
Same
program.
price for a smaller bottle of juice or
Well,
something.
for example, Snickers bar, they did a thing, and it's like 20% less for the same price. That's corporate greed. That's corporate greed. And we've got to deal with it, and that's what I'm working on.
Corporate greed. It's corporate greed. That's called capitalism, dude. Companies make things. Snickers makes candy bars, and sometimes they cost a little bit more, and they have to figure out how much they're paying their employees. Also, when you guys artificially inflate the minimum wage, then they have to look at the numbers, and they have to go, oh, we'll have to pay our people $18 an hour, even though they don't create $18 an hour worth of value. I guess we're going to have to charge more for the Snickers bar, or we'll have to make that Snickers bar smaller. That is freedom. That is capitalism.